Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. 11 detained on a 14-day joint police-military operation launched in St. James. PNP predicting possible industrial unrest among contract workers in the public sector. And later in sports, long overdue repair work to be done on GC Foster Pool. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. 11 persons have so far been detained by the St. James Police under a 14-day operation. The joint police-military operation is titled Surge and is in a bid to rid the parish of criminal elements. Head of the St. James Police, Superintendent Vernon Ellis, says the operation comes following the end of the state of emergency on Tuesday and a 60% reduction in homicides for the month of December. The operation began on Thursday at 4 a.m. Superintendent Ellis says significant gains have already been made under the operation.
Since morning, the division has recorded the recovery of an Intratec submachine, a Glock pistol, some assorted rounds, magazines in respective areas, Railway Lane, Barnett Lane, Bogue, Salt Spring, and we are with our good senator now in this space of flankers. We intend to shape the outcome of the safety of the parish with this for the year 2023.
While not divulging numbers in terms of murders, Superintendent Ellis says the parish has recorded fewer homicides so far this year compared to last year. He says for January 2022, 30 murders were committed.
The recoveries are out there. We are leading the country again in terms of the numbers of weapons. Last year we led, and at this point, with today's recovery, we are way ahead of all the other divisions. The public order operations that was designed to reset the city and to bring about that lawful state will continue in 2023, and I must say we are moving to build out and expand on our quick response capabilities.
Superintendent Ellis was speaking at the St. James Municipal Corporation meeting on Thursday. The St. Mary Police are searching for 3 suspects in connection with Thursday's murder of well-known businessman 72-year-old Delavale Bamberry along the Broadgate Main Road. Now, attempted robbery is believed to be the motive. Cash amounting to $7.7 million was found in 2 bags at the scene. Mr. Bamberry, who operated a Cambio, was attacked and shot by men traveling in a silver Toyota Probox motorcar about 6 p.m. The businessman lost control of his Toyota motor truck, which ran off the road over a precipice. He was found inside the vehicle with bullet wounds to his upper body. He was taken to the Anotobe Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The opposition PNP is warning of industrial unrest among contract workers in the public sector if they are unfairly treated under the new compensation review system. At a press conference on Thursday, opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson said contract workers are yet to receive retroactive sums or improvements in benefits.
We believe this is discriminatory. It's discriminatory because you may have 2 workers in the public sector, one on contract, one who may be considered permanent. They're doing the same job in the same department, and one is treated in a particular way, benefits from the compensation review, and the one on contract doesn't. There is likely to be industrial relations restiveness if those contract workers do not believe they are being treated fairly.
So far, about 17 unions representing public sector workers have signed the revised compensation scheme. Ms. Robinson says critical stakeholders, including public bodies such as the National Housing Trust and the National Water Commission, are in the dark.
Review will affect them. And while the government has signed up what I would call most employees in the central civil service, there are a number of critical agencies that have not come on board. And what do I mean by critical agencies? I'm talking about like the fire brigade. I'm talking about the correctional services. I'm talking about air traffic controllers. Those critical agencies are yet to be brought on board in the compensation review. And the 2 big ones that remain outstanding are the teachers and the policemen.
The Shadow Finance Minister is also calling on the government to state the time frame to establish the public sector pension fund. The government hopes to sign off on the new compensation system and pay outstanding sums by the end of the fiscal year on March 31. In the meantime, Mr. Robinson is calling for an update on census activities.
We had a great launch last year of the census, I believe in August. We had a census day in September. I know people were trained, people were provided with devices, but for some reason we haven't seen the activity on the ground. Some of the persons who have been trained have decided to go back to their day job because they haven't heard anything. And the activity that we expected to see of census takers being out across the country gathering data, we haven't seen. So I'd like an update and a status on where we are with the census.
The Canadian government has given Jamaica over $1.3 billion Jamaican dollars to fund its So Just social justice project. The project is aimed at improving the justice system. Shamela Pullen reports.
Jamaica's justice system has been under scrutiny for years. While there have been improvements, officials and other stakeholders agree there is still some way to go, particularly as it relates to justice reform. The Canadian government is pumping 12 million Canadian dollars, which amounts to 1.3 billion Jamaican, to fund a new initiative dubbed the So Just Social Justice Project. The aim is to advance justice reform across the island, specifically vulnerable groups, by 2028.
Certainly, the just concluded program JUST. We achieved the four main pillars, that is equity, access, participation, and the promotion of rights. May I say, Minister, that we have achieved a lot, and we in the justice system have made significant progress, but we still have a far way to go.
Canada's Minister of International Development says Jamaica must strengthen institutions, systems, and legislation. He says it must also advance the rights of women and girls and work to improve the outcomes of disadvantaged groups.
And for many years, Canada has been the primary international development partner of the government of Jamaica in justice reform. It's something that we are very proud of. We have supported a series of reform-related programs, all designed to advance a comprehensive and systematic approach to justice modernization.
The United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, is also an implementing partner of the project. UNDP resident representative Denise Antonio says the launch is a bold step.
If social justice is to become the new norm of the justice system, it must prioritize equity, access, participation, and rights for all, leaving no one behind. Jamaica has a solid foundation on which to build this culture of social justice. It has a strong constitutional and legislation foundation, including a Charter of Rights and Freedom embedded within the Constitution.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. Much more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The St. Mary Health Department is calling for greater protection of watersheds in the parish. Chief Health Inspector Rupert Stevens says following tests done by his team on watersheds in the parish, the microbiological analysis reports are unsatisfactory.
It would suggest to me that we have to revisit the issue of the watershed and to look at the extent to which the watershed areas are affected by human habitation or animal rearing, because that is two primary points of contamination of the watershed, which will ultimately get into the water supplies.
However, for water supplies such as springs, which are managed by the municipal corporation, Mr. Stevens says there were significant improvements in the month of December compared to previous months.
There is an increase in the chlorination rate compared to November. Thus far, we are looking at 56% of the supplies when we tested them in December. they had satisfactory chlorine residual readings.
The Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, JHTA President Robin Russell, says the new variant of COVID-19 impacting China and other parts of the world, including Caribbean countries, is not a concern for the sector at this time. Speaking to TVJ News recently, Mr. Russell says based on information from the experts, the virus remains under control, and so the tourism sector continues with business as usual. However, the JHTA president says what is of concern is a recession.
We don't have any control over what a recession in a major market does or is, but we're going to do what we can. We're going to be planning for it. We're looking out for it. We're cognizant that it can happen, and if it does, we're going to be prepared for it.
Meanwhile, Mr. Russell says the winter tourist season is looking good so far. He says there were a few hiccups, but everything is now on track.
We've had a couple of hiccups with the winter storm that caused some delayed in flights and some rebooking of hotels. We saw just yesterday where, there was a major disruption in travel. Fortunately, we only had delays, and I think it was only one flight out of Montego Bay that was completely canceled. So we're not seeing any disruptions that would worry us in the tourism market right now.
This month, we started a discussion on money management with a focus on budgeting. The first step was tracking your spending. Now, Cody and Barrett joins me in studio to tell us the next step.
Thank you, O'Shane. Well, according to experts, it would be best to track your spending for at least 3 months before creating your budget to know your recurring expenses. But January is the month of beginnings, and so this month we are tracking. And after we complete the tracking process, we would have gotten a better understanding of exactly how much we spend where. The next step is actually creating your budget by categorizing your expenses. Is it a need or a want? Understanding the categories of expenses in our lives and being able to differentiate between the two will help to maintain a balance in your financial life. According to budget coach Karen Clark, in your budget, your expenses should fall under one of two groups, fixed or flexible.
We all know how much we spend on rent, we know how much we spend on groceries, we know how much our car insurance is. However, our flexible expenses is really where we have the most control. So what would fall under flexible expense would be eating out, groceries, self-care, stuff like that, where you can either spend 20,000 eating out or 5,000 on eating out. So you have a lot of control there.
Here's a tip for how to categorize your expenses. Use the 50-30-20 budget rule. Limit 50% of your income on needs. These are expenses that you can't avoid. 30% on wants, things that you choose to spend your money on, although you could live without them if you had to. And save at least 20% for goals and emergencies. While not all of us have fixed expenses that take up 50% of our income, it's important to note that no two persons' budget will look alike. But the categories you've created and amounts you've totaled will help inform your next step in creating your budget. Join us next week as we look into ways you can use to spend wisely. O'Shane?
Thanks, Cody. And it's now time for the latest in the world of business.
JN Bank is set to roll out JNPay mobile wallet in March. The beta testing of the digital wallet will begin internally with staff of the Jamaica National Group and then later to the public. JN Bank was approved as a distributor of Jamdex in December and was issued $1 million worth of digital currency. The first was NCB through its Link wallet. According to the Chief of Digital Transformation and Special Projects at JN Bank, Ricardo Distant, subscribers to JNPay will only need their tax registration number, TRN, and a national ID to enroll. In the global economy, the World Cup unexpectedly boosted the UK economy in November. The economy expanded by 0.1% due to a demand for services in the tech sector and in spite of households being squeezed by rising prices. The Office for National Statistics said hubs and restaurants also boosted growth as people went out to watch the football. But it is still unclear whether soaring cost will tip the UK into recession.
Now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Trinidad's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, says there is no need to change the COVID-19 protocols, cancel Carnival, or close the country's borders, despite an increase in the number of COVID-19 cases. According to Dr. Rowley, the population is now highly immune, with approximately half vaccinated, and a large portion of those unvaccinated have developed natural immunity after being exposed to the virus. However, he stressed the importance of personal responsibility, especially during Carnival next month. On the international scene, authorities have taken dozens of Haitian migrants into custody after reaching Virginia Key, a barrier island off Miami in the United States. The 25 people who made it to the shore were taken into custody, while the 40 others on the sailboat were stopped. Multiple agencies, including the City of Miami Police and Miami Fire Rescue, have responded to the scene. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Jermaine Brown will have your midday sports report.